Hello and welcome to another CAD video. In this video, we're going to talk about configurations as they pertain to assemblies. So we did a video on configurations in parts, which is incredibly useful, and assembly configurations work a lot the same way, but they have a lot more sort of practical application. Because in assembly configurations, much like in the part configurations, how we can disable features, in the assembly configuration, we can disable entire components and have an entirely different setup of parts. So I started out here. This is actually from the Certified SolidWorks Associate Practice Exam information that's available on sort of the website. I just grabbed this not so much to show you how to do the exam, but it was just a quick assembly that I could use for this example. So again, if we come over here to our feature manager area and the tabs up on the top, we've got configuration manager. And right now we've only got the one default configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and add a configuration to this, and I'm going to call it extra link because ultimately I'm going to add an extra one of these yellow links in. So we'll call it extra link. So now I've got a configuration. Now, in this configuration, much like with the part, when I started to disable or suppress components, I'm going to do the same thing here. And in this case, to add a link, all I'm going to do is I'm going to suppress this green pin. So I can right click either right on the part, or in the previous video I showed right clicking in the feature manager and clicking suppress. I can click also in the assembly, I can click right on the part and suppress it. Now, when I come to my configuration tab, if I go back, that green pin is on. Here it is turned off. So I'm going to go ahead now and insert a part. And short pin is the one that makes up the links for this particular model. I'm going to mate it just real quick. I'm not going to worry as much as I would about alignment of planes the way I would in a full assembly, but for the sake of demo, we get the idea. So I've added a short pin. I'm going to insert a component now and add the link back in. So we want to mate the, rotate a little bit here, mate with a concentric, those two. And then I'm going to mate real quick and dirty. Normally I would use a width for something like this, but I'm just going to mate it flush like that. And I'm not going to worry about orientation too much. I'll open it up a little just to sort of match the other ones. And then I'm going to insert the long pin. So now we have a one extra pin sort of model. So mate, and we'll get our concentric, and then we'll get our coincident or flat mate there. And we've got the long pin. And so now, again, when I click back and forth between these two, we have an issue, right? We have an issue. So the extra link is correct, but now the thing with assemblies to remember that doesn't show up in part configurations is any part that I added after I created that. So I added this extra link in this green pin and the blue pin that you can sort of see peeking through here. I added those after default was created, right? And so they all show up when I'm in the default configuration. So what I need to remember to do when I'm doing configurations and assemblies is I need to remember to go back to my default or any previous configuration. And this can get kind of tricky when we've got a bunch of, if we've got 15, 20, we'd have to go into each one individually. And I can select all three of the new parts and suppress them all at once. So that now when I double click to switch back and forth, now my configurations look like they're supposed to. So that's sort of a thing to remember. So now again, if I were to create another configuration, one thing to check that I don't think I've ever actually tested when doing that is let's see what happens if I do a derived. So let's do a derived configuration. And let's call this extra link and just two, just to make sure it doesn't freak out because I named it the same. So I'm going to suppress this out of my extra link. I'm going to insert a component and I'm going to add a short pin, and I'm going to stop short because I want to see this. This is an experiment, me doing this on the fly. I've never thought to try this before with a derived configuration, but I'm just going to drop this pin in, not the extra link. just to sort of see. So now if I go back, is that pin? Yes. So even with derived configurations, any parts we add will show up in previous configurations. So that's a thing to be aware of. Um, that is a thing to be aware of. We can just delete this configuration. So there is a configuration manager, and right at the moment, I'm trying to remember how to actually get there. Configuration publisher, I don't believe is the right. No, we don't want a design table for now. There is a configuration manager that allows you to actually delete configurations, but for some reason, oh, there it is. I just have to not be active. So let's delete the extra link configuration, and now we've got our and I can actually delete this extra short pin because that's the one I added for my experiment. So we've got our two configurations, and then if I go and take this guy, just like with a part, if I take this guy, make a drawing from the assembly, and let's just drop it into B. I don't need my custom template for this one. Um, and we'll just grab an isometric because it's an assembly. We'll grab an isometric view, and I'm going to drop a model view in, and I'm going to drop right away another model view that's isometric right next to it and accept. And in this case, I'm going to right click the second one and I'm going to go back to my properties here in the context menu. And again, right in the middle, just like with parts, I can select which configuration to show. Right. So this has now got that extra link in it that I added. Now useful for various things. I can show different, obviously different types of assemblies. If these are completely different products I'm selling, whatever, I could put each one on its own page, its own sheet in the drawing pack. A lot of different things that I can do here now that I actually have configurations. So I'm going to go back to my assembly. And again, if I go back to the full feature manager, once I switch assemblies, I can see which parts are suppressed between configurations. If I go to the extra link, the long pin is the only thing suppressed. I can do everything. I can explode both. So if I were to right click on extra link and new exploded view, and at one time, now this is again me thinking out loud, sort of on the fly, there used to be sort of an auto explode. Does that work? I don't know what the rear of the bounding box is, but well, I'm just going to explode there we go. So everything's sort of dragging out. So let's undo that actually. And while we're creating our explosions, let's select everybody so that the whole thing explodes. So we'll slide it all apart. I don't usually use the automatic version. Oh, I can change individual ones. That's kind of cool to know. If I grab the axis, I should be able to, whoa, 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 whoa. We'll be a little ginger with that, but I should be able to, I would have thought, drag them all at once. But either way, we have an exploded view, and that's really what I wanted to show. So now extra link has an explode. I can click back to default. It's all back together. I can add an explode to default as well. We got auto spacing turned on. Let's again check every part, and we just want to move them apart just a quick and dirty to illustrate the point. And we'll just explode everybody out, except that guy. So now I have explode of default. We can collapse, and we got it back. So we got extra link, we got exploded view. Let's collapse, right? And then if I switch back to my drawing, right, I can right click. Well, let's add a new view to show you how. So model view, grab that isometric. Um, it is this configuration to grab because that was the last one I was working on in the drawing. So if I right click this and go back to my properties, I'm on extra link. I can't change the configuration here, but what I can do to get the explode is under display state. So extra link to display state. That's not correct. Where is the show an exploded view? Again, fun with working on the fly. They're right there where I didn't want to look. So I don't have explosions here like I would with a configuration that I created. What I need to do is show it in exploded view. And it explodes. This guy, same difference. Just right click the view property, show and exploded. Now, if there was, you can place more than one exploded view per configuration. So if there was more than one, that's where this drop down comes in. I only have one, but I can explode it. I can explode it in a couple of different ways. And the configurations here, along with multiple explosion views, really come in handy for assembly instructions. So say I want a set of instructions showing how to put this thing together to an operator, drawings that I can put in an operator's hand for how things go together. I can use a combination of various exploded views and various configurations to show exactly how things go together step by step. Throw each step on a page and call it a day. So very handy. I hope this was helpful. A look at assembly configurations, sort of a quick look. There's not a whole lot of tricks to them. Just remember that as you add parts to future configurations, it's also going to add them to every part or every configuration that came before. So you need to remember to go back and suppress them in previous configurations if you don't want them to show up. So again, hope that was helpful. Thanks everyone for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future SolidWorks video.